Good morning. I'm Kunal, and I'm joined by Ivan, Yvonne, and Panos online. And let's start with a quick show of hands. Who in this room recognizes this man? Interesting. We are in a room full of sports marketing professionals or people working in sports, and there are a lot of you who don't recognize him. And that's a problem. Why? Because this man was at the center of one of the biggest safeguarding scandals the industry has ever seen. For the people who don't know, his name is Larry Nassar. He was a team doctor at USA Gymnastics, and for years he abused hundreds of women while the systems around him failed to stop it. Action was only taken when damage was done. And that's really a point of our project because safeguarding must move from headlines to habits. It needs to move from a reactive approach to a proactive approach, which is building everyday habits that protect the welfare of athletes. While this incident deals with gymnastics, our project today focuses on athletics, and specifically the Athletics Integrity Unit, which was established in 2017 as an independent entity. And in 2021 is when it launched its first safeguarding policy, which kept athlete welfare at the heart of its mission. From then to now, it has been driving a culture of integrity and safeguarding. And this actually goes just beyond policing and also more about the proactive habits that I'm talking about. Via this project, our aim is to elevate the mission to the next level. And for that, we had the task to identify the key factors and delivery tools which are required to design safeguarding campaigns. How we tackled it is by dividing it into the following steps. We identified the best practices, defined insights on key factors, but more importantly, we provided actionable recommendations which are tailored and strategic across all touchpoints. For the purpose of this project, our scope is limited to the top 1,000 elite athletes and their athlete support personnel. While this sounds simple, it is far from it because the diversity that this group poses is a challenge. The top 1,000 athletes actually comprise of almost 100 nationalities. And more importantly, this keeps changing every quarter because the registered testing pool keeps changing every quarter. What this actually means for us is that what is perceived as right in one country might not be the case in another. And history has given us clear lessons. Take Walmart, for example. When Walmart launched their everyday low prices campaign in Japan, it backfired. Reason being, Japanese associate low price with low quality. This actually shows that there is a very fine line when we talk about what is perceived right and wrong from one country to another. And the line actually becomes even more thinner when the topic is as sensitive as safeguarding. This actually tells us that while athletics, which is one of the most universal sport, a universal approach might not be the most effective. Keeping this in mind, we built our methodology. It starts from benchmarking. This actually ensures that we lay the groundwork when it comes to identifying what has worked and proven internationally correct. After that, we have divided into two different work streams. One is tackling the issue of segmentation, and the other one is about identifying the key takeaways from athlete survey that we received from the client, as well as carefully conducted one-on-one coach interviews that we did as a part of our project. The final output for us are culturally sensitive recommendation matrices that are not just evidence-based, but also very contextual to the sport and contextual to the topic at hand. The design of this methodology is very intentional because benchmarking provides us credibility, segmentation ensures inclusivity, and the data analysis helps us understand the lived perspective. By bringing it all together, our recommendations become actionable, very strong, and culturally relevant to the topic at hand. Now, we'll have Panos explaining all the methodology steps in detail.
For our benchmarking methodology, we selected several industries in order to understand how safeguarding communication and policies vary. We chose these industries mostly for the diversity of work environments and the availability of open information around safeguarding practices. Once the organizations were finalized, we defined parameters that could support a clear comparison. These include the communication channels, the tone of voice, the overview, and the actionable insights for AIU. The organizations range from fashion, technology to academia, pharma, and UN bodies like the International Labor Organization. One of the biggest takeaways from benchmarking was identifying the safeguarding framework developed by USHR. The Understand, Prevent, Recognize, Report model offers a clear structure to map safeguarding communication. So we adopted the structure across all the next steps of our project. Other takeaways focused on the importance of using the right words. For example, Microsoft uses concern instead of incident in order to be more sensitive towards the employees. Anonymity and scenario-based learning were also important factors to be considered in many sectors. In parallel, we received a survey from AIU which focused on athletes' learning preferences with more than 400 responses from 72 different nationalities. For us, the biggest takeaway from the survey was that athletes were willing to use digital tools like mobile app and website for learning, and this we took into consideration while identifying the right communication channels for the project. Additionally, the learning frequency data helped us understand how often they need to be iterated. We had the privilege to have 6 very insightful semi-structured interviews with ASPs from different countries, and the questions were formed around the USA cheer model. We observed that most of the coaches were sensitive towards building safeguarding education, which is more tailored for them, but all of them highlighted the importance of cultural context in communication with athletes and peers. The qualitative analysis validated the need for customizing the educational programs.
As we said before, athletics is multinational. Athletes from 43 countries won medals at the Paris Olympics. That is level of diversity no single educational program can carry with one approach. Yes, of course, people everywhere share the same basic safeguarding needs to be safe, respected, and protected. But the ways how individuals engage with institutional systems or report violations are deeply shaped by culture norms. To address the diversity challenge and adapt safeguarding education in different contexts, concluded that the best way was to apply international social culture framework. And after careful analysis, we chose dimensional hosted model as the most widely recognized and adapted. This model is empirically validated, cross-national, and the most importantly, gives us measurable dimensions we can apply directly. Now, let's see how this model works in action. The main hosted research idea shows while humanity shares universal needs, cultures differ in predictable way. And these differences can be measured across 6 culture dimensions, each scored from 0 to 100 scale. For our project, we selected 4 that most strongly affect safeguarding behavior. The first one is power distance, or PDI. Yes, we know that unfortunately, in world of sport, very often inequality in powers lead to cases of abuse and misconduct. This dimension shows how cultures view authority. Do people defer to leaders or feel free to question them? Second dimension is individualism versus collectivism, or IDV. Do people prioritize I or we in daily life? Third dimension is long-term orientation, or LTO. Do people focus more on immediate outcomes or plans for the long term? And the last, fourth dimension is indulgence versus restraint, or IVR. Let's take example. In indulgence countries such as Venezuela or Mexico, people are comfortable with emotional storytelling and open dialogues. Safeguarding works better when it engages feelings. In contrast, in restrained cultures such as Russia or Bulgaria, people prefer more formal, duty-focused approach. In short, this dimension shows whether our emotions expressed freely or controlled by social norms. Together, these 4 dimensions shape how safeguarding messages can be received and applied across regions. As you may have understood at this stage, we moved way beyond target audience of elite 1,000 athletes and their support personnel. Using this model, we created a set of recommendations that can be applied in more than 200 countries. But initially, we had to convert raw numbers into categories. We remember that hosted model countries are assigned values from 0 to 100. And we divided these countries into 3 ranges: low, medium, and high for each dimension. We did this by setting thresholds at the first and third quartiles. It means that we looked at the 25 lowest and 25 highest scores with the rest in the middle. For example, for power distance, scores below 50 were classified as low, above 80 as high, in between as medium. We use this method consistently across all 4 dimensions. Just to illustrate, Malaysia scores close to 100 on power distance, meaning that safeguarding could work better through formal top-down structures. In contrast, Austria, with a score of 11, as a small power distance country, could benefit more from open peer-level dialogues and scenario-based role plays. Now let's summarize how we moved from challenge of global diversity to practical solution. First, we started with selecting 4 hosted dimensions most relevant to safeguarding. For each dimension, we extracted concrete cultural traits from original hosted research. Next, we converted these cultural traits into safeguarding context. We combined insights from cross-sector benchmarking, from interviews with coaches and experts, and we use results from athletes' learning preferences survey. We built our recommendations across 4 safeguarding stages: understand, prevent, recognize, report. Finally, we brought everything together into recommendation matrix. This matrix allows us to create country-level profile. So, for each country, our client can see what recommendation, what culture traits matter, and what delivery tools work best. In short, we moved from global culture theory to specific safeguarding behavior and finalized by practical country-level guidance.
Now we come to the 6 steps model. So many theories, many frameworks, and now we need to move from the theory to practice. The question is, how do you use in your day-to-day work? So to make it practical, our team has made a prototype of the briefing generator that could work for your team to generate a very social culture tailored communication strategy to use in your day-to-day work. So how will this work? Let's take an example. Imagine that you're going to create a strategy for Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island country near Venezuela. So with 1.5 million population, the country may be small, but it's huge on its speed. It's the home of the world-class sprinters and also to the track and field athletes. So imagine if you're asked to create a safeguarding campaign targeting this country, where would you start? Will you start with your past experiences, with the use cases, or even with Wikipedia? But with our tool, you will be able to use it within just 5 clicks, and you will be able to have a tailored communication strategy to this country. So, above all, how does it work? Let's start with step 1. Step 1, select the country. Very easy, straightforward, just to choose the Trinidad from the drop-down menu. And then you will see the scores that my colleague Ivan mentioned, the 4 dimensions, will be automatically populated out. And these scores are editable. So if your team finds the scores doesn't fit with your context right now, you're free to adjust them. And the next step would be to choose the safeguarding stage. In this example, we are going to use the understand stage as the example, because understand stage is the first step where the athletes and coaches are being introduced with the safeguarding concepts. With all of the preconditions set up, and with 1 click, you will be able to see a matrix of the recommendations at your desk. So how do you read this? How do you interpret this? I can take example of the power distance, for example. So Trinidad is low in power distance, meaning that people are more open to equality. They're open to open discussions rather than just waiting for some top-down orders. So in this case, safeguarding can be frameworked with some peer sharing formats. for example,
Focus groups.
yes. So focus group is one, and also we have the Q&A sessions, story sharings. These are very good for the low power distance country, other than very formal memos or formal sharings. The next one is the collectivism. So the loyalty to the group is very strong in Trinidad, which means safeguarding can be framework as the way to protect the team and protect the community. And also the senior leaders will play a key role in reinforcing this message. The next one is the indulgence, meaning people in Trinidad, they prefer to sharing enjoyment, to share emotion. And in this way, safeguarding should be more powered by story-driven rather than very like abstract concepts. And also the next one, the short-term orientation, meaning people in Trinidad, they would rather to see very immediate results, quick messages, and they want to see very tangible consequences. So with these 4 dimensions, you will get a very holistic view of the country profile that you could use it to as a blueprint to make a strategy for safeguarding. Now we have the content. What are some best tools to carry out this context to people with the local habits and in the local context? So for example, for PDI, again, using our Trinidad example, people would prefer more like informal conversation in WhatsApp group than sending out very official memos. And also because they enjoy emotions sharing. So maybe some bite-sized content with strong emotions is better than long occurring courses and videos. So this 6 steps model shows you actually how to generate this country's profile within a very automatic and effortless way that you can use this to tailor the communication strategy. And we hope this will be a blueprint to guide the Federation in making the strategy. Looking ahead, we don't only want this to be a one-off pilot project. That's why we propose a roadmap that will be aligned with World Athletics competition schedules and with the AIU's working timelines. We propose to launch this project in different phases along the way to collect the feedback, user feedback in the real time and iterate along the way. In conclusion, this whole model and this generator sets the foundation for safeguarding in the long term, not only focusing on the short-term consequences, and also it also brings the safeguarding with the cultural diversity into the strategy making, and also sets the AIU as a global leader's position in the very inclusive safeguarding communication. And to conclude, if you and your team is interested in trying it out, feel free to scan the QR code. Your feedback will be very, very welcome. Thank you.